Welcome back, guys. It's Israel. So, have you guys been working with C# data recently? Maybe you've needed to sort some lists of data to maybe send to some table in the front end, but you feel icky with your code. It's a bunch of if-else statements or a bunch of if statements that, while they do the job of sorting the data, right, by ascending, descending, or by whatever column it may be, it looks a little icky. Like there has to be a more efficient, clean, and modern solution that really uses the most of C#. Well, I'm here to tell you that a much better solution is to use IQueryables with delegates. And while delegates can be a tricky thing to grasp within C#, it is a slightly more advanced concept. I know I've struggled with them in the past. I'm going to do my best to explain what delegates are and how with IQueryable, they can give you a more modern, elegant, and more efficient solution than using a bunch of if-else statements. So let's get into delegates. But real quick, I want to give a shout out to all my channel members. Thank you guys for the support. If you want to see your name here as well as get access to all the code from all my videos, click the link in the description or the join button on my profile and send the email to this email with the code that you want access to. But now, into the video. Alright guys, so I'm going to quickly explain what delegates are in words, then we're going to jump into some basic examples, and then we're actually going to get into the main sorting delegate example that I have for you guys, that I hope that you guys can take into the future whenever you have to sort data. So now, as we have here, we have delegates in C#, obviously, and this image, all I really want you guys to start taking away is a delegate doesn't actually hold a value, it really just points to another method. So it's just a sign that says what the method is and that you gotta go that way. So that's all you're doing. This is just a pointer. So let's move forward. So what is a delegate in C#? Delegates are essentially the blueprint for a method. We define a specific signature, what parameters the method must take, and what type it must return. So like I said, it's really just a sign that's gonna say this method has these two parameters per se, and then we're gonna return this specific type. But there's no logic there. It just points to another method that has those same values. So it's very flexible and generic. It is a pointer to a method. Like I said, a delegate doesn't contain the code, but it knows how to find and call the method that does match this signature. Delegates are powerful because methods can be passed as arguments, which makes code extremely flexible. Which method is called can be done at runtime, so the method can be dynamic, and due to the strict signature of the delegates, it's type safe. And we're gonna see this when we actually get to my sorting example that I'm gonna have for you guys, where we are taking advantage of passing in methods as arguments, and as well as during runtime, choosing what method that we're gonna use. Some common uses for it are events as well, and also with LINQ specifically, IQueryables like for sorting, which I'm gonna show you guys in a bit. I understand delegates can be a bit confusing, so we're going to go over now some basic examples before we actually get to the code in our project, which is a little harder to grasp if I don't go through these baby steps right now. So let's get to the actual simple code examples. All right, so these are going to be some basic examples from this Medium article by Ravi Patel. Just giving credit where credit is due. So we're just going to use these simple ones. So I'm going to start with this one up here. So this is just going to be a basic example of what a delegate is. Like I just said, a delegate is really just a sign that points to the method that actually is what's going to do the actual logic. So right here at the top of here, we have this public delegate. Void is going to be the return type, and print message is the name of the delegate, and then it's going to take one parameter of string message. So if a delegate wants to point to another method, it has to have the same return type and this same method. So now when we actually get into the main method here, what's happening? Well, they create a version of this delegate right here, an instance of the delegate of print message, and then they assign to it this print to console method. So just directly they assign it. What is the print to console method? Well, it is a public static void print to console is what it's called, and then it gets a string message. This has the same return type and parameters as a delegate, so the print message delegate can point to the print to console method. So as we see here, when we call print message delete or del, whatever, which is the name of the delegate instance, and all you do is you call the instance and you pass in hello world as a string, it goes to here, and then it's like, okay, which one are you pointing us to, Mr. Delegate? And it's like, hey, you're supposed to go to print to console. So then it runs this automatically, no question. And that is a basic way of doing a delegate. Now let's step up the complexity a little bit more. I'm going to skip to number 3 here. because this is a little bit more of like what we're going to do in our example when it comes to sorting our data, when it comes to using our link queries and our IQueryable. This is going to be a little bit more of what we're going to be seeing. So let me walk you guys through this code. So at the top here, we have this public delegate void menu action. Okay. So this is the menu action. It takes no parameters, and it's also a void return type. So it returns nothing. So as you can see, these are going to be printing things out. Then in the class program, we're going to have these three methods: show date, show time, and exit. They're not going to actually take in any parameters. They're just going to show the date, the time, and then one of these is just going to exit the application. And now we get to the main method, and they're declaring a dictionary. A dictionary is key value pairs. So the key is going to be a string. So we see here 1, 2, 3. And then here we have something interesting. This is basically a delegate type. So this is not actually a method that you're passing in. This is a menu action type. This is like if you were to do int or string or something of that nature, but it's of type menu action. So that's how you're actually able to do this. So what they're doing is they're passing in their type of show date, show time, and exit, but they're all of menu action. So it's basically creating a pointer to all of these. Once this gets called, menu action gets this pointer. And then it's like, oh, I go to show date, show time, exit. And we're going to see that once we get down here. So they have this while loop right here. So essentially it just gives a user steps. So it shows it the menu, and then it's like, enter your choice. So let's say you enter number 1 here. Whenever you're in your little console, you enter 1. So it's going to check the menu, and it's going to check, hey, did you type number 1? Okay, cool. He put number 1. They're going to go into the menu, and they're going to go number 1. Number 1 is going to send back show date. As you can see here, they're directly calling that function. So show date is the delegate type function. So when it executes this function, this is not like calling just this. This is actually going to call this menu action pointer, and then this calls this. I hope that explanation makes sense, because this is sort of where we're going to when we're going to go into our example going forward with actually sorting our data using delegates and IQueryables. So I hope this example made sense, because this is sort of where I'm building you guys up to our project. But now let's move into the actual IQueryable delegate project example for sorting C# data. All right, guys, so we are now at our project. So as you guys can see here, what I have is basically a table that has 3 columns that we're going to sort by. It just has random Pokemon data that I have. So this is an Angular project using a .NET API. So you don't really need to know anything about the Angular project. Really, everything is going to be just obviously C#.NET focused. So first thing, I'm going to go over the if-else version of how you sort, which again is correct, but it's not as elegant or as good, I think, long-term, or as modern of a solution for C# as I think the delegate and IQueryable example. Obviously, in both of these, I am using IQueryable. By no means, if you're doing paging, filtering, and sorting, should you be using IEnumerable and loading in everything into memory and then filtering. You should do everything on the database side and only get exactly what you need. So only these 5 results, not all 100 that you might have, right? Because that's just going to be slow and efficient. So I just want to clear that up. But now let me show you guys what we're going to have when it comes to the API. Let me just show you guys the API so you guys understand what's going on in here. So we have this Pokemon controller. In here we have a good amount of methods. As you can see here, get Pokemon with filters, create Pokemon, edit, and delete. Really, our focus is going to be right here on this get Pokemon with filters. It's going to hit 2 different endpoints depending on what I change here. This one's get Pokemon with filters if else, and then there's another one that's just get Pokemon with filters. So essentially we're going to grab our filters, which in this case, our filters object is just the column to sort and sort direction. So the column to sort is going to be either name, region, or type, and then it's going to be either ascending or descending depending on which way the little arrow is going. So that's all we have in here. Obviously, in the future, if you do extra filters or if you're doing paging, there would be more things that you might want to add to this object to then do the rest of this. But if we go back to our Pokemon controller, on load, we're just hitting this get Pokemon right here, which just brings in all our Pokemon data. So if I refresh this, you guys are going to see that we're just going to get all the data. So we have 7 and we're only showing 5 per page. So let's say that we want to sort by region. So what happened here is that we hit get Pokemon with filters, and then we were able to get our filters of region and ascending. And then it hit get Pokemon with filters if else. And then I put a breakpoint at get Pokemon with filters if else. And we can see that we have our filters right here of region and ascending. So this is where we're going to get into that first solution that I gave you guys at the beginning. This is something that I've done in the past. So by no means is this me saying that I've never done this. I have definitely done the solution before, and this is me learning something and wanting to share it with you guys because I do think it is something that was really cool to learn and experience and understand. So first of all, let's go over what solutions I've done in the past, and maybe you guys have too, because it makes sense, it's easy, and it works, right? And if it works, why, use the brain too much. So what happens here is we're going to use if-else statements with IQueryable. So we're going to first check, are our filters empty? So in this case, our filters are not going to be empty. If they were empty, when we get to this point, it would be like, oh, the filters are empty. Then we just want to do our regular query of just sending everything, right? If we had paging in this, we would just attach paging somewhere here, and we would only send back the first 5 with the total amount. But since we do have filters, then we obviously want to actually filter or sort in our case, because we're only doing sorting right now. So our focus is on sorting. So we are just going to get all of our data right here. So we're going to go to our database context, our Pokemon table. We're going to include the region table and the type table. Our database is only 3 different tables with Pokemon. And I'm just going to go into here. Our Pokemon table has the ID, name, type ID, Pokedex number, region ID. And then these two are just foreign keys to the region table and the type table. So very small database. The type is just going to have a name and then the type ID. And then region is just going to be the region and then the name of the region. So if any of you guys have played Pokemon, there's a lot of different Pokemon, and they all come from different regions, and they're all different types, fire, water, whatever it may be. So that's all we're doing here. Those are the only 3 tables that we have. So we're including all that information into this object. And then we're saying as queryable, because we're going to perform either a filter, a paging, sorting, and we need to add that logic in conditionally. So if any of you guys don't know, I have a video about IEnumerable versus IQueryable. The link should be somewhere up there. But really, as queryable is all still just logic. The query is not being executed. If I had IEnumerable or toList here, like it is here, it would actually bring in all the values into memory. So in our case, when we're conditionally adding logic for filtering or ordering or whatever it may be, you want to keep it all as logic and don't execute. So this is the term deferred execution, if you guys want to look that up. Basically, we want to build up our link query, and until we have everything that we need in our expression, then we trigger it by doing a toList, looping over it, or whatever that may be. So moving on. So we're going to do our basic query right here of get Pokemon with region and type, and we're setting it as IQueryable. So if you hover over this, you see that it is an IQueryable right here. You don't actually see an IEnumerable or any of that. So you actually here don't have any results yet, because this is all just the query logic. So now in this instance, we have our sort direction of ascending. So we're going to go into here, and since we need ascending and descending, and the link method is either order by or order by descending, that's why you have to have 2 different blocks, and then you have to repeat the same code, just switching out this method. So it would be great if we didn't have to do these 2 blocks, right? Because in the future, what if you add another column? Let's say you had a, height column for the Pokemon. Well, you would have to add another block here and another block here. And you see how this can balloon into a very big if-else kind of mess, and it can be kind of just hard to read and hard to update. Even though it isn't that difficult, it still can balloon that section of code to make it a little less readable than you'd probably like. But it will work. You're going to do ascending, then you're going to do name. So you're like, okay, that means we're going to order by this. So you're just going to step through. Actually, we cooked region, so we're going to step through and do the region name that we're going to order by. Go through here. We're going to get back to here. We're going to select our Pokemon object and then return it. And then on the front end, we're going to see that we did sort correctly. Hoenn, Johto, Kalos, Kanto. So if we do it again the other way, and we just press this, we can see that it does work. So now we have Unova, Sinnoh, Kanto, Kalos, and Johto. And then these were Pokemon that were on the other page and it sorted correctly, right? So again, like I said, this works. But is there a better solution? I'm going to show that one to you. All right, guys, so I just killed the API because I need to go in and change something. I need to go in here and I'm going to change this method to actually be this get Pokemon with filters method, because this is going to be the one that's actually going to use the delegate. So now we're going to go back to our Pokemon repository, and now we see this is the method and the way to actually sort that I've been talking about since the beginning of the video. And it's going to be very elegant once I explain it. I hope it's not confusing, and I hope you guys at least understand what delegates are. And let me start explaining this so you guys can understand what is going on here. And I'm going to try and be as clear as possible. So let's start with the beginning. Like in all the other previous examples, our delegate is at the top. So we have a delegate. The return type is of I-ordered queryable Pokemon. So obviously an IQueryable, like we've talked about before, is like the expression logic before you actually execute the query. It's what gets translated into SQL or whatever it may be, and then it executes in the database and comes back with our query. In this case, since we're going to be applying an order by, because the main key here that we're going to improve on is one, the if-else statements. We're going to improve on these, so that we don't have to do these like twice, as well as the way that we can apply order by and order by descending without needing two different sections as well. So conditionally, we can apply it. That's what we're going to use the delegate for. So we are returning an ordered IQueryable. That's essentially what this type is right here. And obviously, it's going to be of type Pokemon because it's a Pokemon list that we're returning to our table on the front end. Our delegate is going to be called order by type, and its parameters are going to be an IQueryable list of Pokemon. Makes sense. And then we're going to be passing in an expression. This expression is basically this. And now the next thing that we're going to have here is going to be a private helper method. So it's going to be called order by helper method. It also returns an I-ordered queryable Pokemon list, and its parameters are slightly different. This is going to be an IQueryable Pokemon list, so the same as above. But in here, its parameter is also the delegate type of order by type. So we are essentially passing into here our delegate type and basically our pointer. Our delegate pointer is what we're passing in to here. And it's going to basically point to which way we're ordering by. Either are we ordering by ascending or descending. So that is what's going into here, and I'll explain that a little bit once we keep going through the code. Then we're again passing the expression for what field we're sorting on. Now, to continue through, the body of this method is going to be order by type. So we're going to be calling the delegate, and then we're going to be passing in the Pokemon list and the sort field. And I'll explain this helper method in a little bit once we see it in action. Now, our main method that we're going to be hitting is going to be get Pokemon with filters. As I said, we're going to be passing in our filters, returning a list of Pokemon, which is going to go to our table. So again, like in the other one, we're just going to be checking at the beginning, hey, are our filters there? If they're not, just return, the basic list of Pokemon. But if we do get our sorting filters, we're going to do something a little bit different. So again, at the beginning, we are still going to be using the IQueryable Pokemon list. That's again going to include the Pokemon with its other tables of region and type. And now this is where things get fun and interesting and really sparked my curiosity and wanting to make this video. In here, the first thing that we're doing is we're basically checking the string that's coming in. So is it either ASC or DESC for descending? Depending on which is it, we're either going to set this boolean as ascending, true, or not ascending, it's descending, so it's going to be false. So depending on what comes in from the filter, we now get to this. And this is a super duper, this is the linchpin to this whole thing working, essentially. So if you guys remember, I said earlier, you can assign methods as parameters to these delegates. And a delegate points to a method, okay? So if you guys have used link before, so you can have built-in link methods, right? One of those is toListAsync. These are methods that link already has the code inside of it, inside C#, inside the Microsoft Magic, right? It's already in there. We just do it and we know it spits out an IEnumerable list, right? We know it spits out a list for us, right? Same when we do order by. We call this method and we know that when we pass it in a method and we pass it in what to order it by, it's going to spit back an ordered list. We don't know what the code is inside of it, but this is a method, right? Like if you were to add this to anything, you would do it this way, right? You would do order by, and then you would do that. So keep that in mind that this is also a method. It is a method, a link method group. So in here, we're going to check, hey, is this ascending? If it's ascending, we want order by. If we want descending, we want order by descending. And then since this is a method group, it won't evaluate to an integer or a string. So we need to explicitly say its type as a delegate type so that it then can point and be connected to this. So we have to explicitly set its type as a delegate type of order by type. Once we have this, and that goes into here, we can see that we have order by type, order by method. So now we have the delegate typing of order by type, and this conditional will evaluate correctly. And now in here, what we're going to have is the pointer to the queryable.orderBy method. So basically right here, inside of this order by method, we have the expression, the logic of the method order by. And then let's say once we get through there, we now move down here. In here is just a simple switch statement. Again, we are not doing this twice now because this handles both cases. So now we just need one switch statement and then its logic inside of it. So now what happens in here? We go through the filters and we're going to check what we get passed in. So whatever column is selected, so let's say it's name. Name, in this scenario, we are going to call our helper method. We're going to pass in our Pokemon list like it needs here. We are then going to pass in our delegate type of order by. So that'll be either order by or order by descending. And then we're going to have the sort field expression of name. So that gets passed into here, here, and here. So now let's explain what happens here. When we actually call our delegate here, when we call our delegate of order by type points to what? It points to this order by or this order by descending. And we're passing in our list and our sort field. So to make it clearer, let me go into Microsoft and let me show you. So in this Microsoft documentation, we can see that order by is its own method as stated by Microsoft, right? We obviously can't see the source code. So that's why I know that this can be a little confusing to grasp. And that's what took me the longest to truly understand how this works. But order by is its own method that Microsoft has the source code. It's just like if you were to write your own FizzBuzz code, locally, you get to see the code and you know what the method is or what it gets passed in, right? But in our case, we don't get to see the source code because we just call order by and it just magically spits back what we want, right? So if we look at the order by, it takes an IEnumerable source or a list, and then it takes an expression. So that is its method signature. And if we look at what method signature we're matching up here, our delegate is the method signature of order by and order by descending. So let's just say they came up with a third order by some random language. It would also match this because as long as the signature is the same of this method, it can point to it. So order by here gets passed in a list and an expression, and it spits back an I-ordered list. Or it condenses the expression trees of the IQueryable logic, and it gives us the new one, so that then that can go be converted to SQL whenever you do a to list on it. So I hope that is making more sense. But essentially here, when you call order by type, that's going to obviously point to our delegate. And what does our delegate point to? It points to order by. So essentially what we're writing here is something of this nature. We're basically doing this, queryable.orderBy, and then we're passing in our list, and then we're passing in this. So this is essentially what this turns into because our delegate is pointing to this method. So then this looks a little bit more readable. It looks more like something like this, right? And now it starts clicking, right? Because we're doing a delegate, it allows us to do both of these at the same time. If we had a third one, we could do it. I also wrote down here, if you guys had a then by, like you did an order by, and then you have to, again, sort by something secondary, you can do the same thing. You just have to use, you have to create another one of these. You have to create another delegate and another helper method, and you would pass in this into here instead of another IQueryable, because you would then be sorting on the next thing. I hope that makes sense. But you can also do then by with this same format, and it saves you time, saves you energy. It makes us more flexible, and it allows you to have more options going forward. And let's say they wanted to sort on, like I did earlier, like height, then you would just need to add one more line here for the actual sorting to take place. This then executes here, spits back your I-ordered queryable Pokemon. That gets assigned to your Pokemon list, and it's still an I-queryable Pokemon. And then right here, you actually trigger it and get your result. So now let's actually step through this example, and we can see it actually in action, return the correct result, like I claim, and then we can go from there, and I hope the delegate becomes a little clearer and clearer of how it works here. But right before I actually test to see if this IQueryable and delegate solution works, please drop a like on this video if you found it helpful, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any of the other amazing content that I have for you guys. But now, let's get into this. So I restarted my API, and we already are going to be hitting this get Pokemon with filters, which is this delegate involved method. So let's actually click a sort. So we're going to again do region. So we should get our filters here of region and ascending. So let's get past this because we obviously have filters, and we already know what happens here. We get the IQueryable with these three main tables. But now we're going to get into here because we actually have our filters. And now, first things first, we're going to check the sort direction. It does equal ascending. So we're going to get true here. So now that we have true here, it's going to equal this order by method, which is the link, like I said, link method of order by, which is going to return the ascending order. But we have to give it the delegate typing of order by type so that it knows to connect it with this delegate typing. Otherwise, the IDE kind of freaks out. So you need to give it this explicit typing. So now if I step forward, we can see that it evaluated correctly, and that we have the actual order by right here. If you see it, it's actually the link function of order by. And now, continuing through, we now have the column to sort. So the switch statement here is region. So it's going to hit this one right here. And it's going to hit the order by helper method of up here. And we're going to pass in our Pokemon list, our order by method of order by, and we're going to pass in what we're actually sorting on the given column. So if we now go here and step through again, we now see that we're going to be getting our result back, to be honest. And what actually happened is, again, like I said, we're going into here and passing in our Pokemon list, and we passed in our order by method. That's what is here. And that is like, okay, hey, delegate, tell me what method I'm pointing to. Oh, you're pointing to the link method of order by, which is, I get why this can be a little bit weird because you're actually not seeing a method that you're calling out to, but you're calling a specific link method of order by when you call this. This is when you actually call your delegate, and it's going to be order by. So order by just takes a list and the sort field, and it spits back the expression that you can then, once you do here, you trigger it, you can step through, and it's actually going to give us back a sorted region. And now if I drop this, get rid of this filter, it's still going to be using this. We can see that we can sort the other way. We can sort the names. And we can sort the types as well. And all of that is using this right here and using this switch statement. So like I said, if we needed to just add one column, we would just add one right here. And then if there was ever another way that we wanted to order by, we would just have to add it here, and we would just have to check for it, and it would still be able to use the same delegate. So it's generic, and as long as it has the same signature, we can still use this delegate, and it's a reusable. This can grow, but it's not going to grow so much like if we keep adding if-else statements. So I hope you guys see this as a more elegant, a more modern solution to actually doing sorting on your data. And now that you know how to sort properly, maybe you want to learn a little bit more about C# and other things that you can do. So click on these videos right here.